This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, March 5th, 2007, and this is episode 226 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hotchberg from MGMstudios.org. On the show today is Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
The federal government's tariff acts are hereby declared null, void, and no law in the state of South Carolina.
Hall of Presidents.
Muppet Vision.
Yes, sir.
I believe also Scopa said that back in the Senate.
I was there.
Scopa's not the only one with. Who is it? Al Sharpton's not the only one with DNA linking him to Strom Thurmond.
Right.
Scopa as well.
Also on the show today is Len Testa, co-author of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. How are you, Len?
How's it going, Matt?
Outstanding.
I didn't know we were having a show today.
And we also have Mikey Newell of Mouse World Radio. Mike, you're going to Disney World tomorrow.
Ooh, my goodness. I am going to Disney World tomorrow morning. I will be on JetBlue flight something.
If it's not canceled.
If it's not canceled.
Stuck on the runway for 9 hours.
And also on the show today is the Tiki Man, Steve Stiefert of TikiMan2001.net. Welcome back, Steve.
Talofa. Okay, I know you guys won't have any idea. It's Samoan for hello. And I hope I pronounced it right, because I really wouldn't want to make them upset.
There you go. Well, on today's show, on Friday's show, we complained, and on today's show, we're doing more complaining. We're calling this show the death of the spontaneity of dining. And no doubt, if you've been to Walt Disney World in the past 2 or 3 years, you've noticed that it's getting a lot harder, especially recently, to just walk into a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant at Walt Disney World, and be able to be seated. Because inevitably, you'll get something along the lines of, we're booked. And this is especially true if you go during any sort of busy time of the year. Now, why don't we first explain why there's been the death of the spontaneity of dining? And Steve, you kind of brought this up to us. So why don't you explain a little bit?
Yeah, well, I've experienced it from not being able to get the dining plan because we've been using the annual pass rates. And I've kind of been looking at it at different angles. Mine being that I can't use the dining plan, and we're trying to, book places to eat, and we go, and everyone using the dining plan's already got everything booked up because they have to get it ahead of time. People even using the dining plan have complained about it being difficult getting a place to eat. And it all kind of started with somebody that I know works the concierge at the front desk that has to book a lot of these. And he made a comment on how somebody will show up at a resort, in this case the Polynesian, and was saying, well, we'd like to eat at Ohana, and we're flexible anytime that we're here for the whole week or 10 days. And They say, sorry, there's nothing the whole time you're here, and people get really upset. It's like, I can't even eat in the resort I'm staying at unless I book it out 180 days.
The 180-day window used to be like for the really popular restaurants, like Cinderella's Royal Table. That's always been when you had to book, way in advance. But that was like the extreme ones. It was like, oh, those crazy people that need to eat there. Yeah. A majority of the restaurants were still okay, and I'm sure you can talk a little bit more about it, Len. But it's really become at this point. I mean, it's you have to not only make reservations ahead of time. I mean, that's first and foremost. But not only ahead of time, you got to make them like well ahead of time. We're not talking like a week before your trip.
No, you got to make them at least 90 days, and in some cases, for the more popular restaurants, it's going to be pretty close to the 180 days in advance, especially for prime dining times. If you want to dine at Le Cellier at 6 p.m. during a peak season, you're going to need to book 180 days out, or no less than 175 days out. Otherwise, you're just not going to get you're going to get reservations. And God forbid you need a table of more than 4 people.
Oh yeah. Oh, forget about it. I mean, you're.
It's interesting because for years we've told people how in the book how to get reservations for Cinderella's Royal Table, and this year we're changing that section of the book because Cinderella's Royal Table now has lunch and dinner reservations, so it's easier to get reservations. The downside is that they haven't increased the capacity of places like Le Cellier or or restaurants like Boma, and there's still only one breakfast there. So we're actually converting that section over to tell you how to get reservations, or to make it more general to places like Boma and Le Cellier.
Now, Len, do you get a lot of feedback recently about people complaining about how hard it is to eat at Walt Disney World, especially if you're just walking in?
Yeah, in fact, we get letters every week from people who say that it's impossible to do walk up anywhere in, like in all the good restaurants in Epcot, for example, at Mitsukoshi, at Le Cellier, at even at the even today, for example, at the I called Mexico to get stuff for next week, and they said, well, you have two choices: you can dine at 4:15 or 9:15.
Yeah,
and that was it. That was party of four.
That's pretty good for a week out,
4:15 or 9:15, but
yeah.
but that's I mean, you're either eating a very late lunch, or
a
really early dinner, or
exactly.
you're eating, so.
I mean, it's funny because if you go and you do have a reservation, I mean, just sit down when you're waiting for them to seat you, and watch the people coming in that don't know any better and walk in and say, my family of four would like to, sit down and eat, and we got nothing, and it's like, some people take it in stride, and others are like, we're going to Waffle House,
Exactly.
and storm out of there. Scopo, what's your view on it?
When I saw it firsthand last year, Matt, when I was there for the free dining last August, and once I was booked, I made all my August reservations in March. So, I mean, I went there, and granted, what I had done was I had locked myself in at certain parks or whatever, certain days at certain restaurants, but I saw it firsthand. People walk in, I get, a reservation, and there just wasn't any there. And I myself, even when I was there, I tried to add a few. I wanted to eat at Le Cellier more than once, and they said they were booked all the way up through Labor Day. It was when the free dining is offered, I think that those people who take advantage of the free dining and who go through a travel agent are probably going to be told by that travel agent or by that planner, well, if there are any restaurants that you want to eat at, let's go over that now. And book them. So those slow periods, which are the prime time for the free dining, are going to see those restaurants being just scooped up left and right. So it's really rare for you to be able to walk up to a restaurant and make a dinner reservation. But like Len said, if you really want to eat at a certain restaurant and you really aren't that picky about the times, then there is a good possibility that you might be able to eat there. But think about a late lunch or a late dinner.
I mean, those are your options, and it's just it with the advent, I think, of a couple things. I think the free dining, and the free dining is really just a subset of the Disney dining plan.
Right.
That, and I think the more well-informed Disney visitors who go on the internet and buy books like The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World, among other guides, passporters and things like that, and they read it and they know that you got to do that, you got to play the game. Whereas even as little as 3 years ago, you might not have known that, and I think you could have done that, but especially with the Disney dining plan, I mean, you're really, there are so many people, I think, that go to Walt Disney World at a huge disadvantage that have no clue. And you're really just
right.
You're at the mercy of. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I guess you're either eating off-site or you're eating at a counter service.
Well, you need to have backups. Like, I have secret backups that I use if I know that it's going to be crowded. For instance, if I'm in the Magic Kingdom and all the sit-down restaurants are taken, I'm going to Trail's End. It's just a 5-minute boat ride.
Good
bang,
choice. Yeah.
Okay. If I'm in Epcot, I'm probably going to be looking at the food court at the Land, or Morocco.
Yep.
Not China. I hate China, but I mean I'll go to
great.
Morocco. Morocco's not too bad. I'll go. And Len, that it's last minute. I mean that's the place to go. You're always
plus I like the selection. I mean, we've talked about this before. Any place that has fried chicken and a donut buffet. How can you go wrong with that?
Can't
And
beat
MGM, I don't know what I'd have for a backup. Matt, do you have any idea what you'd have for a backup?
If you're for backup, you're probably gonna have to go to say Boardwalk or Swan or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, but even then, I mean, I don't know what you're really gonna find there in terms, because it's very popular over there.
Well, if it's not a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and maybe not a Sunday, if it's a Monday through a Thursday, you might be able to get into Spoodles.
Yeah. One of the things you got to do, and I think everyone, it's almost like, as we're talking this, I'm like, well, I think a lot of people who listen to this show know at the very least you got to make reservations for these places. And unfortunately, the people who don't know these are the people who don't buy books, who don't listen to podcasts, who don't go on the website. Yeah. They just show up. They book the trip. They call Disney, and, they just show up, and it's putting them at a real disadvantage there. to be able to do that. And there's been a real backlash against the dining plan, hasn't there?
Everyone who uses it thinks it's fabulous, but I definitely see the people who don't know how it works, or who are feeling more the impact of it on a spontaneous last minute trip. Those are the people who aren't enamored of it.
Well, there's also been those people that I've been seeing who have the dining plan. They do all their reservations ahead of time, and then they get there. And I think a lot of people also think that these reservations mean you're going to be seated within like 5 minutes of that time you set it for. And then they sit there for 45 minutes, and they go crazy because they're already going crazy that they had to book 180 days out. And then there's these it's crowded waiting rooms for all these people trying to get into some of these some of the restaurants, and then they wait 45 minutes and they think, well, why haven't I been seated after all this planning I've done?
Well, here's my contention. The way the reservations work is you just call up, you give them a phone number, and they hold a reservation for you. So then when person B shows up at the restaurant, they cannot give you that table because they have a reservation for person A. Now the thing is, I don't have any statistics to back this up. This is pure speculation on my part. However, I would believe a vast majority of the people do not show for the reservations.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
During peak times, the number of people that no shows is less than 10%.
Really?
During off season, it's as high as 30%. During peak season, nah.
I would have thought that there would be a lot of people who just don't show for one reason or another. Because I would say what I was trying to get at here was that I think a better way of ensuring people would be coming to the reservations would be some sort of a credit card hold or something like that. Because like when you make a reservation for like say one of the dinner packages like at Candlelight Processional where they take a credit card, I mean you're going to that.
That's different though. But
well, they're doing that for the shows now too, aren't they? The dinner shows.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They do that for the princess breakfast, princess meal at Norway too.
Yeah, and because it just it's just I think that would be one way to cut down on I think in my opinion I think it's I'll stand by what Len said, but I was under the impression that I wouldn't think it was anything close to 50% of people not showing up, but I thought it was a fair amount, maybe even a quarter of the people don't show up for the reservations.
I see your point in wanting to do that. I think that if there was a way that they could kind of, I don't know, make you a little bit more responsible for using them and not abusing it too much by just going out and getting a bunch of different reservations. But I'd hate to tie people to that too much too. I mean, we missed one out of all the ones we did when we were there for during Christmas time. So it's going to happen. And we were just we were in a whole other end of Disney World, and we just weren't going to make it over to Animal Kingdom.
Yep.
So I mean, things do happen. So you don't want to, punish people too much for it. But then I think they need to understand that, hey, you really got to be serious about wanting to do this and not just trying to spread out and get as many reservations as you can, just in case you happen to be in the area.
Absolutely. I mean, now if someone is going to try to dine at Disney and you're trying to, I mean, is it really dead spontaneity? Are there any options left for you on property?
Yeah, I mean, there's this. The secondary places, the places that people don't want to eat at. The sci-fis of the world, the
Cape May Cafe.
Cape May Cafe. It's actually not bad for dinner. For breakfast, I heard it's not that good.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, it's you're being forced into your secondary, venues, and it's not like they're decreasing the prices of those places. It's essentially you're paying a premium for mediocre food because you can't get into the the places that are good values, the combinations of good value and good food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's I mean, personally, for me, I plan ahead, and I look and say, well, I'll probably want to eat here and eat there, and then I'll just eat, counter service, or perhaps I'll be going, off-site to eat. And so it's easy for me, but I know how a lot of people don't operate like that. Not everyone can do that. It's not in everyone's psyche, and it's not everyone knows how to do it or is capable of doing it for one reason or another. So it's, I wonder what kind of, guest relation nightmare. I mean, if you're working that window, at guest relations, especially during a peak season, I mean, can you imagine the people coming over there and complaining to you about, I can't eat anywhere. I want to spend my money, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, especially if you get to the end of your vacation and you've got a meal, a sit-down meal for everyone every day, and you don't have days to use them. That would drive me up the wall.
Scopa, what advice would you share with our listeners when dealing with the death of spontaneity at Disney dining?
I think what we've talked about, and Len mentioned, I think that you need to be well informed as to what available restaurants are down there. There are some that are not as popular as others, and still you can get a very good meal. For instance, those who would like to eat at Ohana's. I mean, Steve can pipe in here. He knows the Polynesian better than any of us. The Kona restaurant can offer a very good selection for dinner. You go to, what'd you say, Steve?
I think for some people it's better because it gives them more variety. You either love Ohana's or you hate it.
I think you're right. I mean, I love the teriyaki tips at Kona. I think that's the key, Matt. The key is to not just focus on one particular one set of restaurants that you want to eat in. Yeah, great if you want to eat there, but have that second tier ready. And again, talking with people, if you've never eaten at a restaurant, try to get several ideas as to what type of food you can expect there, and so you won't be disappointed. The other thing is that I carry in my cell phone. I have the phone number so that I can, when I'm in the parks, I can call. So I don't have to walk up to a podium and say, do you have any openings?
Yeah,
I'll just call and I will ask the cast member, okay, I'm in this park. Let's go right down the line of the restaurants. Tell me what's available. Tell me what times are available, and that will save some time. One thing I also noticed in MGM, and I haven't noticed this, I don't recall noticing this at any of the other parks. I have been in MGM, and I've walked up to a restaurant, and I've said, do you have an opening? And if they didn't, they said, well, let me check to see if there's any other restaurant in the park that has an opening for the time that you want. I haven't noticed that in any other theme park. That happened to me at Mama Melrose, that happened to me at Hollywood and Vine, and that happened to me at Primetime. I'm not sure if it's MGM only doing that, but that's another thing that everyone can do is if they happen to be in a park, why not ask them if they're not crowded? They'll probably be able to do it. But if there's a long line of people trying to get in, probably you don't want to take up their time. But that's another thing that you could try as well.
Great.
It's just you, Mike. They just do that for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Mr. Scopa, how are you? Get Mr. Scopa's table.
You look like you need a seat.
Mr. Scopa, you're going to join us tonight? How wonderful.
You look like you need a seat.
We have a table over there. Get this tester out of the way.
Are you done yet?
Quick, call us, sell you. Have a Scopa special rushed over here right away.
And here's the menu of food you can gum.
Oh,
Or we have it blended.
as long as it's
Potato
not,
whip.
as long as they don't have someone over the
puree.
table. As long as it's not pre-chewed.
Well, that's it for us today. We want to thank Steve Seaver for coming on with us today, and of course, Steve is hosting the Tiki Fest on July 29th. So go check out TikiMan2001.net for more information on that. Go see Len over there. Len will be waiting for you. Steve, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And if you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, you can visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.today.com. You can also email us at questions@www.today.com, or lend us to Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, and Steve Seifert. I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.